I'm Amy Andrews.
And hi, I'm Jennifer from George, and welcome to How to Watch Movies Like a Writer. And today we're looking at the iconic When Harry Met Sally. Amy, what did you think of this one?
I love this movie. I've watched this movie probably 50 times, conservatively, but I hadn't watched it for quite some time until I watched it again last night. And I'm so pleased I did. I even got my Happy New Year little head things on in kind of, to celebrate the fact that this movie, essentially culminates in New Year's Eve. And in fact, all of what moments I have on New Year's Eve. So I think it's beautifully scripted. It's a Nora Ephron film. She wrote the script. It's directed by Rob Reiner, who also directed The Princess Bride. So I feel like we've got kind of romance royalty, all round here. It's an amazing rom-com. It's funny and bantering, and it's just so heartwarming. I just loved it. What about you?
I'm the same. It's one of my all-time favorite movies, and I reckon I've watched it 50 times as well. But I think one of the most amazing things about this movie is it's like a masterclass in dialogue. I mean, the lines that come out are iconic lines that have made its way into, society. When things like high maintenance, things like what else? When I was watching it again, I was thinking all these lines, we know them so well. And, the scene at the deli, and there's just so much iconic stuff in that movie. And the way it's put together structurally, the characters, it's just so brilliant. And I think what I love about it too.
It's like almost like a love letter to New York. Yeah, I was going to say, I love that. It's like almost a love letter to New York. It's so New York. And if you've been to New York and love New York, it's just like, to me, I just lap up all those scenes again as well.
Yeah, and that there are parts of New York. So, for example, I mean, we're probably jumping ahead a bit here, but, when Harry and Sally separate, and I think it's the Washington Park Monument. They go their separate ways in the car. And then when Harry has that realization that, hang on a minute, it's at that monument when it all comes together again. And they do that beautifully through the film, do little setups all the way through that we come back to over and over again, which I think is really, really clever structurally and, symbolically. I think that's done beautifully too.
They do. There's all those little echoes, constantly echoes. We can mention more as we go through. And I guess it's the first time we watched the film really critically and really analytically to go, that's a little echo from what happened, 10 years ago or whatever. And it's just structurally, you're right. Structurally, it's just like chef's kiss. It's amazing.
Yeah. And it sets it up with the, they can never be friends. And that echoes all the way through the movie, but it's we can never be friends, and then we slowly move the dial, then smash it all to pieces. And even in the last scene, they say the entire theme of the movie themselves at the end. But it's just so cleverly done how they move through the story.
And I feel like that is the theme of the movie is can men and women ever really be friends? Yeah.
And also it's your classic enemies to lovers or friends to lovers scenario, but it's also brilliantly opposites attract. I mean, the way they set them both up at the beginning is just in the car ride. It's just, you can see Sally is just going, I hate this guy right from the get-go.
Yeah, right from the get-go. I was looking at the tropes as well, so definitely like sort of enemies to lovers, but not really friends to lovers, certainly towards the end. Opposites attract, like the best opposites attract, I think, in probably the history of film and TV and like books or whatever. It's just so good. But also there's like little mini ones, like there's a one-night stand in it, right? There's the road trip. These are all kind of tropes. And there's also that like right under your nose, like all along they're right under each other's noses.
Right there.
I love that.
Yeah. I was the same. That there's that person who's been in your life, since you were a teenager, and you never looked at them, and then suddenly, over time, you looked at them in a different way. Yeah, so beautifully done. So in the beginning, what kind of hooked you?
Well, I mean, that opening vignette I love the vignettes all throughout. So the opening vignette is almost like a prologue, like really, isn't it, of a book? I was like, this is kind of like a prologue, and like all good prologues, it works so well. Like we talk about this in the course, right? Prologue or not to prologue, put in a prologue, but only if it serves a purpose and only if it's good, right? I think this is just a perfect opening. It kind of hooks you in, and I love how they use the vignettes throughout. They use the vignettes to mark time. They use the vignettes as a juxtaposition to how the relationship with Harry and Sally are going. It's just such a great device, a structured device. I adore those. And the bookend with Harry and Sally at the end and the vignette, it's brilliant. So brilliant.
So well done. Yeah, really well done. And you don't see that often, that sort of technique in a movie, and it works really, really well. And then when we move from the vignette into the opening scene with Harry and Sally, I think what gets me is just so brilliant right from the get-go is when, Harry's snogging, one of the friends, and she just goes on the wall. I just think, I love her. She is fantastic. Yeah, that just got me straight away.
They established character straight away, and they established the plot straight away. This is the beginning of their call to adventure, right? They're going to New York to change their lives, both of them. So it's like what we always say, when you have to start your book at the right place in the story. It's exactly the right place in the story to start it, because they're both just meeting, and it's gonna, it sparks off this, adventure that they're going on for like 12 years and 3 months. Even it's long and it's drawn out, but I love how that really the entire first scene is just them going from Chicago or whatever to New York, and then picking, fighting, setting up how much they dislike each other, how opposed they are. She's kind of set up to be this uptight Pollyanna, and he's set up to be this kind of loosey-goosey, laid back. And it's a complete cynic, right? Everything is, dark, and he always he reads the book, the end of the book before he starts in case he dies. It's just all just set up so beautifully in that scene. I love that entire the banter and the dialogue in that entire first opening scene when they went across the country. It's just it's a great start, and it really sucks you in because you're just hooked. You want to know what's going to happen to these two people who cannot stand each other.
And it's all beautifully done too. And so, for example, when they're paying the bill, she's got a calculator. She's working it all out to the last cent. And you watch him, and he just gets up and chucks a note on the table. It's so, everything about them is so incredibly opposite that you just think, well, what's beautiful is you think these two will never, ever get together, which is brilliant. Yeah. So it's
absolutely. I love how we're introduced to Sally, how Sally orders. Again, setting up a completely opposite track thing. Like he orders so pedantically and so specifically. All these kind of little things that go throughout the movie, and how it irritated him in the beginning, but how he loved it at the end. How she was so specific about her ordering. It's really brilliant. And talking about echoes, we're saying at the beginning, it opens up with Harry snogging the girl, and then when it moves forward 5 years, it's her snogging Joe at the airport. So this is like a little echo of what happened in the first sort of where they first met, which I thought was brilliant. As you said, they do that all throughout, and it's really, really, really well done.
Yeah, and I know it's terrible to jump to the end, but we're talking about the echoes, and one of the brilliant echo of on the side. The on the side, just comes through all the time, and Harry, you can see Harry as he moves through how she does I have it on the side, and at the end, he's with her on there. You can't have the chocolate sauce on the cake. You got to have it on the side, because not everybody likes it on the cake. And that beautiful echo all the way from the beginning, and it's the way you can, we'll talk about this at the end, but you can tell they're going to be together because he gets it. He gets why she has to have everything on the side. And, you know, beautifully done all the
Yeah,
way through.
I think it's a great thing. It's a great thing for writers because, you know, we have things like as we call motifs through books, that we things that reoccur throughout books that you use as those sort of touchstone moments throughout that you don't necessarily even realize you're doing in the beginning until you kind of get to the end and you realize the importance and significance of it. So that on the side is kind of one of those things. All these little echoes are these little like Easter eggs or these little moments where, which you can use. They're great literary devices to use, you know, to really draw the book together and draw the characters together and kind of make their journey a little bit more cohesive, even if it doesn't seem like it's, you know, if it doesn't seem like they're going to be together at the end. You kind of have these moments where you go, "Oh, hang on a moment," you know.
Yeah, and I think it has to be really cleverly done to be effective. And Rob Reiner and those and Nora Ephron, the way they do it is so clever, because sometimes those sort of motifs or symbols can be a bit, you know, smash you over the head with them, but these are also beautifully done. All the echoes just work brilliantly. Yeah, so I love that.
Yeah, there's another echo that I love.
Yeah,
there's another echo that I loved. The scene with the Christmas tree when they're friends and they go get the Christmas tree together and it's all happy and you know, doing it together, and then they skip to the next year where they've had that argument, or you know, they've slept together and there's been that big faux pas and they're not friends anymore, and she has to drag this Christmas tree into an apartment all by herself. I was like, oh, I hadn't really, you know, it's so good to watch these things analytically. I was like, there you go. There's another little echo along the way that, you know, that you can, that they use to demonstrate the up and down nature of their relationship as they get towards their kind of HTA.
Yeah, absolutely. No, and as I say, I love that one, and it's so brilliantly done. And she's so happy the first time, and then so desolate the second time. And when she comes through, and the tree falls over, and then he's, you know, on the phone begging to be forgiven, and it's all, yeah, no, it's just great. But as I was saying too, the dialogue, Amy, the dialogue. I mean, there are so many great lines. Have you got? I've written some down because they're so funny. What's one of yours? A great line that, can you remember one that really stood out?
Banter. But all their banter is just A+ from the very, very beginning. It's just sparkly, zingy, and to me, what makes a good rom-com, not just in film but as a book, one of the aspects is there has to be banter. There has to be banter, and this film does it so well. If you let me know some of your your moments, because I've got a couple of longer ones that I want to talk about. But yeah, you go with yours.
I'll just give you a couple of the lines that I think, you know, we that have dropped into the lexicon. You know, the one where, where is it? I've got it written down. You know, she's your classic nightmare. Where is it? Oh, that's right. You know, when Marie says, you know, I think he's seeing this anthropologist, and Sally asks about her, and you know, what does she look like? You know, thin, pretty, big tits, your basic nightmare. You know, that is just a brilliant line that even from the first time I saw that movie, it was just your classic. Oh my God, just nailed it. But one of my really, really favorite lines too is when Sally says to Harry, you know, you've got to move back to New Jersey because you slept with everybody in New York, and I don't see that making Helen a fake memory for you. I love that line. It's like, yeah.
I wrote that one down.
And then it's
great.
Yeah. And then they make up, you know, he sort of, you know, takes it, and then, you know, we get over that moment and they're friends again. Yeah. Tell me some about yours.
Yeah, that's right. I think I love that the sex fantasy conversation they have about her sex fantasy. How sometimes I change that. Well, what do you do? I change the clothes I'm wearing. I think they're conversations more than their individual lines. Obviously, you know, the classic "I'll have what she's having." Obviously, everybody, you know, says that these days. But I absolutely adore, and I had to write it down because it's long. But I love, you know, the ending when, actually, maybe we'll talk about that at the end, and we won't talk about it now as a piece of dialogue. I love that he can make her laugh, even when she's crying in the scene where she's crying on the bed and she's just found out the boyfriend's having a baby, and she says something about, you know, Charlie Chaplin could have had a baby at 73, and he says, yeah, but he was still 51. And she laughs even though she's crying, and then she starts to cry again. But I love that they use dialogue, particularly Harry, who is clearly emotionally stunted. He uses that to use levity in kind of the darker situations, which is life and what happens in real life, and it's great to put that in. I try to do that when I'm writing funny scenes. In books, is that there's always a moment, when I'm writing heavier scenes, in books, there's always, you know, a moment of levity, and it's great to use dialogue and to use humour in those kind of situations.
Yeah, and in that scene, that same scene, Amy, is the one where she goes, I'm too structured, I'm so closed off, and he goes, but in a good way.
Yes, and the whole low maintenance, high maintenance thing, that conversation is really good. The conversation they have about how she couldn't possibly take the best sex of her life with a guy called Sheldon. It's just like everything is just, you know, the dialogue is so great. But I like also the more serious bits of dialogue. Like, I love the constant echo throughout with Carrie Fisher character, Marie, how she constantly says he's never going to leave her. And they go, yeah, he's never going to leave her. I love that. And there was another bit I had down. I've got so many notes written down now, and they're also disordered. But yeah, the dialogue is definitely A+.
Yeah, no, as I said, I think it's like a masterclass in dialogue, and if you know you do want to write these kind of stories, these sort of rom-com stories, you know, really watch this movie carefully for the dialogue, because it's just so brilliantly done. And the echoes that come, right, yeah, as you said, the Marie character always goes, you're right, I know you're right, and that comes up over and over again as well. Yeah. So speaking of Marie, what's beautiful too in this is that we have two secondary characters, the two best friends, and these guys play a really great role in the story as well, because of course they get their happy ever after way before Harry and Sally do, which I think is a very interesting thing as they use that in their story. What did you feel about those two secondary characters?
Yeah, well, they're foils, aren't they? They're foils to Harry and Sally. They're kind of, both of them in a way are in the same boat at the beginning. You know, they're both, you know, single and kind of, well, one's the mistress, really, isn't she? And she's unhappy, and the Jess character is just, you know, he's kind of decided he's just never going to find love, and that's okay. And then they actually find each other, and they're just this kind of perfect foil to the Harry met other characters. It's kind of chaotic and all over the place. These two, when they meet, it just, you know, it's all just meant to be, and it all just happens so beautifully, and it's calm, and they're kind of what Harry and Sally will be, you know, at one, you know, down the path and in the future. But yeah, I think what I like about all the characters in this movie is that they're all so well drawn. They're so well defined. Characterization in this movie is just, you know, it's also A+.
Absolutely, yeah, and you know, again, a brilliant line is, you know, when Jess says at the wedding, if we found either of you too attractive, we would not be here with you today. And, you know, it's that they've just had that most horrendous argument, and then there's just another big slap in the face that these two are actually never going to get together. You know, they can't even talk to each other at a wedding, and it's all just, even though they're, you know, the best man and the maid of honor, it's just so well done that you get all the way so far through the movie and you think, how will these guys ever get together? It's really brilliantly done. And talk to me about how you think the tension was kept going all that way.
Well, I think it's interesting because, you know, I guess it's tension, conflict, or I think sometimes that can be a bit overwhelming to think about when you're writing a book. But I think if you think of it as the thing that is keeping them apart, if you're confused about conflict, why do I have to have this? But I think that it's just the thing that's kind of keeping these two people apart. And initially, it's their dislike of each other, right? So they have that, and then they meet again 5 years later, and they're both in relationships and about to get married, right? Or both in relationships, and then 5 years later they meet again, and they're both post breakup. So so they have this initial meet-hate sort of setup, and then throughout the rest of the relationship, they're pretty much both actually and emotionally unavailable, and so they're actually fighting their own kind of demons a lot there, not necessarily because they do slowly become friends through that whole process. So they actually have this tension within themselves. They're actually not available to be in a relationship together anyway, and then they become, friends, and you think, they're finally going to get it. And then Sally has her black moment and I love that line. I love that line where she says, it's not that he didn't want to have babies, he just didn't want to have babies with me. I think that was the line I was wanting to talk about earlier. It's just the most heartbreaking line. Like all this lovely, witty, funny, bantery stuff. And that's the most insightful, gutting thing. It wasn't that he didn't want to get married and have kids, he just didn't want to have with me. What's wrong with me? It's kind of the echo of a lot of, women who are in relationships that get abandoned or whatever. It's just, to me, and particularly at the time it was released, I think it was 1989, it felt like it really summed up a lot of, the way a lot of women in their kind of early 30s felt at the time. I think it's very much a movie of its time as well. There's some things now I think, I'm not sure you can get away with, but it definitely kept that tension going because Sally's black moment leads to their black moment, right? Because then they have sex, and then that's the black moment for them because she's laying there. I love that she's laying there all blissed out in the bed, and he's just laying there like a deer, in front of the headlights, thinking, "Oh my God, what have I done? How long have I got to wait here now before I can chew my own arm off, or we're going to get out of this room because what have I done? What have I done? What have I done?" So I think the tension is kept going just through both internal and external, plot points, I suppose.
Yeah, and the whole point of when characters have sex, that it ratchets up the tension. So in this movie, it's done brilliantly, as you said, because you've got two characters reacting in such an extraordinarily different way, and you just know that Sally is going to be so let down, thinking, I was different, and yet I'm exactly the same. He's getting up and he's leaving. So, yeah. And you just feel heartbroken for her all over again. Yeah. No, it's brilliantly set up. It's brilliantly done.
I think that's what we discussed in the course, right, about when we get to the sort of the sex scene part of the course, is that sex should always make things worse. It should always up the stakes. It's not just there as, body bits slapping together and for the titillation. It actually serves a point. It should always make things worse. Yeah. And this is an amazing scene where it just makes everything so much worse, because they have dinner the next night and they're like, it's fine, we'll be friends, it was a mistake. But then actually they never talk again. They don't talk again for a long time because of it. He tries to keep reaching out to her, but she's, she can't get over it. He can, because of course, sex is just sex to him until he realizes that it's not.
Exactly. Yeah. No, it's really well done. So can you think, for you, I mean, there are so many memorable moments in this movie. Obviously the deli scene has to be one that goes down in history as one of the most memorable moments in movies ever, which was so brilliantly done. Are there any other moments that you just see it into your mind?
Well, I just want to say that I've actually been to the deli in New York where that scene was filmed. Actually, it was Claire Connolly. So we had that memory together. We sat and I had our Reubens there and sat in the same kind of spot where they actually filmed that amazing scene. I think, to me, there's a couple of memories. I love the scene when, at the end, when Jess and Maria argue about that stupid wagon wheel coffee table, and Harry just goes right off at them about, 5 years' time we'll be fighting over this stupid coffee table. I love that scene. I love that scene because what it shows to me is that for all his cynicism, all Harry's cynicism and all his sort of laid back, she'll be right, mate, kind of, you know, attitudes, he actually really loves his wife. He's actually really emotionally gutted by that. And I love that you can, so therefore you can see his progression in character, that actually he was in love and he has become emotionally more mature. So I love what that scene demonstrates. And I also love that moment. I guess it's a big funny scene, but I really like that moment, the New Year's Eve, before the ending New Year's Eve, when they're on the dance floor and they're dancing, and they both have that moment when they're cheek to cheek and you can see in their faces, they could feel something changing. I thought that was
Something's
subtle,
changed.
but really well done.
Yeah. And just on from
What
that,
about you?
exactly. Yeah, I agree. That moment where they're cheek to cheek, and then the next moment when they're out on the balcony and they've had that change, and then they're looking at each other thinking, oh, what happens now? And what happens now is, oh, we're friends. It could have been a moment where they went, I'm looking at you differently, but it's, you know, we can't be anything more than friends, you know, that's it. So yeah, that's that. And that moment happens right in the middle of the movie. It's very interesting. And the one I love too is, you know,
I didn't realize that.
Yeah, right in the middle. Yeah. The other one I love is, you know, when you were younger and you broke up with a boyfriend, and if you ever ran into him, you wanted to look your best, like fantastic, you know, screw you kind of thing. And there's Harry singing Sorry with a fringe on top in front of Ira. You know, I love the twist that it's the bloke who's making a complete fool of himself in front of his ex and his ex's, you know, new partner. You know, it's the moment you don't want to ever have happen, looking like a complete moron when your ex walks by, and it's just done so beautifully. I love that moment. Yeah. So that's probably one of the most memorable for me as well.
They're great moments.
Yeah. So are any of those, do you think, our Hollywood moment? You know, that what's the one we remember most when we walk away from that movie? What would be the one for you?
I mean, the orgasm scene is the Hollywood moment in that movie. It's the one scene everyone in the world, if you mention when Harry Met Sally, knows about. So for me, it's definitely that scene. I think there are memorable scenes, but to me, that's the Hollywood moment. And it's interesting because it's not, oftentimes the Hollywood moment is the the end scene, isn't it? When all kind of gets set. I know we'll be talking about that, but I think it's definitely that scene.
Yeah. And the other one I found interesting in this one too is, you know, the first kiss and how important that first kiss is, and how interesting how that kiss happens. And it's, you know, it's where we won't, we will, and we tip over the line, and we all know we're going, oh God, this could be a car crash. Is this going to be a car crash? Oh my God, I think this is going to be a car crash. Yeah.
I do love that the first kiss they have. I mean, this really, it's such a brief moment that you don't get to see any of the sex or anything like that goes on after. But I love how that kiss scene evolves. It starts off as just a friendly peck, and then like another friendly peck, and becomes like slightly more like, oh, hang on, and then it becomes like a full on pash, and they just kind of let their passion sort of explode for each other. I think it's one of the really great first kisses that you can kind of watch on movies, because it's not as full on from the beginning. It's just this. They're changing from friends to lovers in that kiss, and you can kind of see by how long it takes, that it's doing that exactly. And then of course it flicks to, straight afterwards, doesn't it? When she's laying there all blissed out, pushing her hair out of the way, and he's just like, thinking, how long do I have to lay here now? And just thinking, oh my God, what have I done? It's perfect.
Yeah. And as you point out so brilliantly in our course, all the sexual tension and crafting that is really quite hard to do well, but it is so important to do well, because it's all and in that kiss you can see that there's a lot of thinking going on, even though you don't hear it. You can see in their faces, their expression, how the moment is drawn out. There's a lot going on, and when you're writing a book, you can put the thoughts in there as well, and doing that is hard. I mean, I always find writing the sex scenes probably the hardest scenes to write, because you have to do them so carefully, and they have to make sense in the story, and they have to ratchet up the tension. And I love your section in our How to Write Love course, because you go through how to do that so brilliantly, because it does it. I mean, you're the master of the sex scene, but do you still find that there's a lot of thinking to do when you're writing those parts of the story?
I do. I think maybe it's a second nature, I guess, because I've written so many, I don't know. But it's important that, and I'm very passionate about when I teach about this, it's that it should never be just about the physical act. You have to know how people feel, what they're thinking, what they're feeling emotionally, because it does up the stakes, it does change. And that's a classic, the scene with Harry Met Sally, the aftermath, is a classic thing. When you get two people naked together, and when they're so, that makes them so vulnerable, and the relationship can never be the same ever again. It cannot go back. It cannot be the same. It has to change things, and that is demonstrated perfectly in what happens after these two finally, do the deed. It changes it. It alters their relationship completely. Almost puts it back to where it was at the beginning again. So yeah, and I think that is absolutely what we discuss as part of the How to Write Love course. Yeah, it's and that's demonstrated beautifully here, beautifully.
Yeah, and the stupidity of Harry thinking it can go back to where it was, where you just look at him eat that salad, and you're just going, mate, you have no idea what's just happened here. It's all coming down. Yeah. So
he reverts very right.
Yeah, straight back, no growth.
He reverts right. Yeah.
Such an idiot. It's really lovely how Ali Blake talks about in our course, in our structure course, that happy ever after guarantee. So what is it, do you think, that, where, Harry and Sally, why do we know they're going to be together forever? What is it about the story that tells us that, in your view?
I think I love happily ever after guarantee. I love how Ali talks about this, and I think that's very true. And I think you actually see this in this movie quite well, because I think the entire kind of section of the movie where they become friends, where they do little things together, like they go walks in the park, and they go to art galleries, and she helps him like shift his furniture in his house, and they play. They're playing. Picture together with friends. I think that, and that's kind of in a book, you kind of call it sort of the fun and games part of the book. We actually get to, where the reader gets to see them actually falling in love, and even though they're not admitting they're falling in love, those scenes are what makes me know that they will have a happily ever after, that their happily ever after is guaranteed. When the movie starts and when the book gets to the end, because of all those little scenes, I think, I know what they're going to be like in real life together. That they'll be able to cope with, the slings and arrows that life throws at you. I think this film does it really well, and it doesn't do it just in like a minute. It actually takes some time to really show you, that they're falling in love, and that they're going to be okay, even if they're not ready to admit it yet.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the things I love that I found is the motif, I think, makes it really clear. So if you watch what Harry wears in the beginning, he's in a hoodie, he's in jeans, he's a slob, he's all the rest of it. In that last scene, he's got a tie on, he's immaculate, he looks all perfectly dressed. So he's sort of come to the party. So even in his clothes, you see him change. And her, she's usually in quite, structured outfits. And then she's in this beautiful, relaxed, white top. And in that, you see they've kind of met each other. But the movie structured so well, so all the little bits come together. And even in what they're wearing, you can see they're going to be okay. So it's those little motifs that you can cleverly drop through a story that can really add a lot of depth and power to the story, I reckon. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we get
that. I think you're right.
Yeah. So you get that another little tick in the they're going to be okay guarantee. And as we talked about before, he gets the on the side. He understands why it's important to have things on the side. And so you get another little tick. And that it's all starting to come together. Yeah. Great. So any other things we need to talk about this one? Stuff that's really good to learn?
Yeah, I think the ending scene is interesting to look at, because as we were talking about before, normally that kind of, in a romantic film, that's often the Hollywood moment, the ending scene, and it just so happens that the orgasm scene kind of overshadows it. But I love the ending scene. He's running through the streets. He's realised he's heading to the New Year's Eve party. It's all set up to be this, great big grovel, which he grovels really well. I'm going to read what he says. I'm just going to click to this document because it's so long. He says, I love that you get cold when it's 71 degrees out. I love that it takes you an hour and a half to order a sandwich. I love that you get a little crinkle above your nose when you're looking at me like I'm nuts. I love that after I spend the day with you, I can still smell your perfume on my clothes. And I love that you are the last person I want to talk to before I go to sleep at night. And it's not because I'm lonely, and it's not because it's New Year's Eve. I came here tonight because when you realise you want to spend the rest of your life with somebody, you want the rest of your life to start as soon as possible. Oh, it gives me goosebumps even reading it. It's like that last sentence in particular is just absolutely perfect. And like, there's Frank Sinatra is playing, as it sounds like he's running through the streets of New York, which is like, New York plus. I think the ending is beautifully done, and it just leaves me with that great big happy side that I read romance for, and I watch romantic comedies or romance movies for. It utterly fulfills the whole, the big grovel at the end with that big grovelly speech. It's just, brilliant, really brilliant.
Yeah. And the fact that everything he says illustrates how well he knows her. He knows all her little quirks and all her little crazy things, and he loves her for them. Yeah. It's one of the best.
Yes, he's not saying, he's not saying, I love how you look naked, and I love how you do that special thing in bed. It's nothing about the kind of extraneous sort of stuff. It's about her, every little tiny detail of her that he's noticed after, through all these 12 years in 3 months, and how, and I think there's another kind of HTA guarantee moment as well. You kind of know, because he's into those things, that, and he's noticed those things, that they're going to be okay.
Yeah, the funny little things that other people probably don't even know about it, and he does. Yeah, no, it's gorgeous, love it, and I get that little. Oh my God, so beautiful. Great, gosh, well, I think we're nearly at time. So, any of you out there who haven't watched
indeed.
You've got to go and watch it. It is a masterclass in dialogue. It's a masterclass in structure. It's a masterclass in dropping motifs that really add depth and power. It's just a brilliant one to look at and analyze, I reckon.
Absolutely.
And
100%.
Yeah. So, Amy, anything else we need to add, or is we're just going to say time for you to go and watch the movie if you haven't?
Yeah,
absolutely. And otherwise we might.
If you
go on.
Yeah, and if you're interested in learning how to write love stories, romance in the way, in this kind of ilk, then we have the perfect course for you, which starts in February.
We do. It's How to Write Love, and what's brilliant about it is it will take you through so many aspects of writing a romance. Think about structure, thinking about characterization, thinking about that snappy dialogue, understanding how to write sex scenes, and just the key turning points, which I think this movie does so beautifully and often very subtly. As we were talking about, that standing out on the New Year's Eve after the cheek to cheek, that moment that they're looking at each other. These are the moments that you really need to have in a novel to give it that emotional punch and that emotional power. And that's the kind of thing that we take you through in the course in February. So writers amongst you, we would love to see you then. And make sure you subscribe to this channel. And, thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. We've loved having you here. And it is New Year.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. See you next year.